Human excretory system. Excretion in man or mammals is an important process. It's a life process for the removal of the excretory waste or the metabolic waste from the body. The important nitrogenous wastes which are being produced in human beings are the urea, the uric acid is there, and other important proteinaceous wastes such as creatinine. Apart from these nitrogenous wastes, there are some other metabolic wastes or inorganic salts which are removed or which need to be removed by the body compulsorily. The inorganic salts may be chlorides, sulfates, etc., and are produced during the metabolic activities of the organism, or over here we are talking of the human beings. Now, these waste materials are very important because if they are not removed from the body time to time, they may turn toxic and may prove detrimental to the life. So these wastes are removed in the form of urine. Excretion is quite a different process from the egestion, which is egestion is actually the removal of the undigested food, whereas excretion over here, when we are talking, it is the removal of the metabolic nitrogenous waste. So this is removed in the form of body fluids, or removed in the form of fluids, we call it as urine. Now there are certain important organs which are playing important role in this. So we are going to talk of kidney, which is an important part of the human excretory system, a pair of ureters, urinary bladder, and the urethra. These four form the components of the excretory system. These play a major role. And when we talk of the process which is involved in excretion, the physiological processes which are involved over here the first and foremost is filtration. Filtration of the blood, and this filtration enables the removal of the toxic waste or the nitrogenous waste from the body. The second important process is reabsorption. Now reabsorption is equally important because the way the water or important metabolites are again reabsorbed during this process of removal of waste. The third is the secretion. So these three form the major physiological processes which are involved in this excretory system. Now when we are talking of these, the most important unit, or we say the most important structure, is the kidney. Let us now study about the structure, the morphology of the kidney and the anatomy of the kidney in detail. Kidneys form the major excretory organ. So they are the main excretory organ and they are reddish brown. The kidneys are reddish brown in color. They are bean shaped and are present in pair. So there are two kidneys and they are reddish brown and bean shaped in structure. When we talk of their location, where the place or within the body, where are they placed? The kidneys are located towards the posterior abdominal wall, and they are present on either side of the vertebral column. So when the vertebral column is running, they are present on the either side of the vertebral column, and they are very close to the last thoracic vertebra and the third lumbar vertebra. When we talk of the size of the kidneys are around 10 to 12 centimeter in length. They are 10 to 12 centimeter in length, 5 to 7 centimeter in width, and around 2 to 3 centimeter in thickness. So they are structures which are when we are talking of this, these are the dimensions of the kidney, and the average weight of the kidney is around 120 to 170 grams. So this, we are talking of an adult human who is healthy. Now the right kidney, when we are talking of the location over here, the right kidney is to slightly lower. When we are talking of the structure of the kidney over here, this is the vertebral column, the other one. The right kidney is towards slightly lower side. The reason for this is the right side of the abdominal cavity is occupied by the liver, and therefore since most of the space is occupied by the liver, this kidney, the right kidney, is slightly pushed downwards. So as a result, both the kidneys are not at the same level. Right kidney is slightly lower than the left one. And these kidneys are held in place by layer of fat or the padding of fat, and also by the pressure from the surrounding or the other organs. Now, when we talk of the kidneys are outermost surface of the outer surface of the kidney is covered by a thick whitish capsule. So if we talk of the structure of the kidney in general, this is having a protective layer which is white, fibrous and tough. Now this white, fibrous and tough layer is composed of actually 3 layers. That is the renal capsule. This is the innermost. Then the second one, it is the adipose capsule. Middle. And the third one is renal fascia. This layer is the outermost. Now, the function of the renal capsule is, it is the innermost tough layer which is made up of actually connective tissue which are fibrous and whitish. The adipose capsule is middle layer and it is made up of fat. It acts as a shock absorber for the kidneys, protection. Then renal fascia, it is the outermost layer and that helps in anchoring the kidney to the abdominal wall. Now when we are talking of the kidney's upper part is known as the superior end. This will be the superior end, and this lower is the inferior end. Now this structure is known as the concave depression, we call it. This concave depression actually is an opening point and it is technically known as helium. We call it as helium. or another name is Helius renalis. So it is the point where the blood vessels, the nerves, the lymphatic vessels, etc. enter. So it is an opening point, and inside the kidney, once through this ileum, it expands into a region which is known as renal pelvis. So here, this structure, this is the outermost morphological structure which explains about the position, the size of the kidney, and the outermost protective covering. Now, when we talk of the kidney internal anatomy, the kidney is from the ileum, the kidney opens up and it forms an expanded structure which is, as I told, it is known as renal pelvis. So let us first understand through the diagram that what is actually the renal pelvis. Now this structure which opens up, this is the ileum position and this is renal pelvis. This expands into a region which is known as renal pelvis, and it has certain projections which are known as renal calyces or calyx. So over here, this portion is known as renal calyces, or we call it as calyx in singular. Renal calyx or renal calyces. Now, this renal pelvis is a funnel shaped space. Now, the LS, that is, if we cut the kidney longitudinal section, we find that it has two distinct zones, the renal cortex zone and the medulla zone. So this outer is the renal cortex zone, and the inside area, that is this region, is known as the medulla region. The medulla region, that is renal medulla. So inside the kidney, LS shows two distinct regions, that is renal cortex and it is also the renal medulla. Renal cortex, it forms the outer firm region. This is outer firm region, dark brown in color and has nephrons. So this area contains the nephrons and is dark, compactly placed, and this region actually is responsible for manufacturing the urine. Now, the other important is the medulla, which is the inner region. This is the outer region, this is the inner region. The inner region is made up of medulla and it is slightly light in color and it appears striated because the nephrons are placed in the renal cortex, but the structure, which is known as, we'll be studying about the structure of nephrons in detail, but the Henle's loop extends into the medullary region. So it appears to have striations. Now this medulla has conical projections called as renal pyramids or the medullary pyramids. So over here, this which you see over here is the medullary pyramid. These are the medullary pyramid, and this is the calyces or the calyx, and slight projection which you see over here is known as papilla. So if we see the structure like this, these are the calyx, this is the papilla, and this is the medullary pyramids, or medullary pyramids are present on the papilla, which holds the papilla helps in holding the medullary rays. Now these actually, the medullary pyramids are around 8 to 18 in number in a single kidney, and they contain the collecting and discharging tubules. They actually carry the urine from the nephron. Nephrons are present in the cortex, so they are carrying the urine from the cortex region to the medullary region, and that is the finally to the pelvis of the kidney. Now the medullary pyramid, when we are talking, has broad base. That is what we are calling it as papilla. This region is the papilla, and the papilla helps in holding these collecting tubules, Henle's loop, etc. The cortex extends in between the medullary pyramid as columns called as columns of Bertini. So over here, these areas, over here, these are the medullary pyramids, and in between the medullary pyramids, we have renal columns. This is the medullary region, and this area between the two pyramids is known as column of Bertini. This is the zone wise we have divided. This is column of Bertini. So this column of Bertini helps the cortex to be anchored better to the medullary region. So if we schematically, if you see the diagram, if we divide the internal structure of the kidney schematically to help us understand better, through the ileum, it enters the tubular system and it expands over here. This is divided internally, that is outer is cortex, the inside is the medullary region, where we have the pyramids, that is the medullary pyramids, and in between this is the columns of Bertini, and columns of Bertini actually are the extensions of the cortex. So it helps the cortex to be a better anchored and to be attached to the medullary region properly. So these medullary pyramid are around 8 to 18 in number. The calyces then branch out to form smaller structures, and each of which then fits over the papilla of a pyramid. So these actually then extends and fits over the papilla of the pyramid, and the pelvis finally leads into a long narrow tube called as ureter. So when we talk of the structure of the kidney's major portion is the cortex and the medulla, and these are distinctly divided, and the cortex region carries the nephrons, and these parts are then extending further into the medullary region, where the tubules and the Henle's loop, all the tubular system extends in the medullary region, that's why it's striations, and through the pelvis the urine is carried to the ureter. Now each kidney, when we are talking, has approximately 1 million nephrons, and these are the functional unit where the actual process of the filtration of the or the formation of the urine takes place.